Hi there, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Race Advisor. My name's Michael, and I am looking forward to going through this evening's session with you. If you are new here, welcome for the first time. It's great to have you here. Now, just so that we get all the basics going while we get ready to start. If anybody could just leave me a quick message to let me know that you're here, let me know that you can hear me without any problems, and just so that I know that the chats are working both on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, to leave a message, just leave a comment underneath the live video. If you're on YouTube, it's going to be over this side. On the right-hand side, you're going to have a chat box. Just leave a message in there to get involved there. Now I'm kind of working on a bit of a quick put together this evening because we redecorated our office, so you can see it's a much cleaner background behind me. But I have a new desk coming, and we thought it was going to arrive today, but it hasn't. So I'm actually working on a desk that's a little bit smaller than a school desk. So it's a little bit cramped, and we're not quite got all the setup as normal. But please hear that everything looks like it is running all okay over there. Now, just wanted to make sure that everything's going over all on YouTube. I'm not getting any messages telling me whether you're on YouTube or Facebook at the moment, so I'm just going to double check that. Thank you, Nicola, Petter, John, thank you for confirming that. I'm just going to jump over to YouTube to make sure that everyone over on YouTube can see us as well and can join us as well. Hopefully that will just join up there in a second. So let me just jump over there, make sure everyone over on YouTube can see what's going on. If you're on YouTube, please shoot me a message and let me know. I'm still quite new to YouTube streaming, so I'm not quite sure how it works. Oh, okay, great. John, Petty, you're over on YouTube. That's wonderful. Flying Benny, John Perkins, thank you very much. Paul as well. Charlie, wonderful. Okay, so YouTube is working all well. Maybe it's Facebook that's I'm not getting the candle. Let me just go double check over on Facebook. I usually get a little icon next to each message that you guys send me, telling me whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. And at the moment, I'm not getting that. So I'm just going to double check that everything is working over there. Okay. So let me just jump over onto Facebook. Okay, looks like Facebook is working as well. Looks like I'm just not getting the indication of what platform you're watching on. So that's fine. That's cool. As long as you can all hear me, that's awesome. Hi, Greshford Ian. Thank you. So thank you very much for joining this evening. I'm really excited about what we're going to be going through tonight. If you're new to the Race Advisor, welcome. Wonderful to have you here. If you haven't yet created an account, please head over to raceadvisor.co.uk. Create an account. Come join in our pro members community. It'll be wonderful to have you as part of the team. Today we're going to be going through the secrets of trainers and jockeys, or using trainers and jockeys to find winners. So the format that we're going to go through this evening is I'm going to go through exactly how we do this and the tactics that we can use to get those trainers stats that will point us in the direction of those strongest horses in the race. And then I'm going to look to see if you asked any questions throughout it. So I'm not going to answer any questions while I'm going through that, but please do ask questions while you think of them. Just throw them straight in, leave a comment, leave a chat, wherever you are, just throw them straight in immediately, and I will come back and I will go through and I will answer them, and that just helps things to keep moving. And then I'm going to jump over to the site. We're going to have a look at actually the practicality of doing it, how we implement it in reality, and how we can use the Race Advisor tools to accelerate that process of finding these strong winners. So that's how we're going to go through it tonight. If you've just joined us, I can see people are still joining in. So if you just joined us, we're just about to get started. Welcome. Please do drop a message in and say hi. If you're on Facebook, it's going to be a comment. So drop a comment in, leave hi. Please hit the like button and the share button. Please do share this with people. So hit the share button. If you're over on Facebook, leave a comment, hit the share button, hit the like button. If you're on YouTube, please also hit the share button. Just hit it and let other people know that you're enjoying what we're doing at the Race Advisor. Grab a pen, grab a pencil, grab some paper. We're going to jump in. We're going to get started. Any questions, as I say, fire away. Right. Okay. So here we go. Let's jump in and get started. All right. Okay. So uncovering the secrets of using trainers and jockeys to find winners. Oh, Anthony, hi, welcome. Lovely to have you here. I remember it very, very well. I hope you're still doing cricket. Okay, uncovering the secrets of using trainers and jockeys to find winners. The simple but deadly effective tactics. As I say, any questions as you think of them, drop them in. I will come back to them later. This session is going to run up to about 9 o'clock, by the way. If you're wondering how long you'll be here, it's going to be just under an hour, just around about the hour time. That's kind of how long we run for. Okay. So before we get into how we can do that, I want to first look at some questions about bankrolls. And I'd like to ask you a question right now, and just leave me a message now, please. Let me know the answer to these questions. So what size bankroll do you think is big enough? How many units have you got in your bankroll? So that's question number one. Leave me a message to that question, please. Second question is, what strike rate do you think you need with a 100-unit bankroll? So for a 100-unit bankroll to be big enough, what strike rate do you think you need? Okay, and the third question, how much of your bankroll are you actually prepared to lose? Okay, leave me an answer to those questions now quickly in the chat, please. So those questions, what size bankroll do you think is big enough? What strike rate do you need with a 100-unit bankroll so that you don't lose it all, you don't go into a gambler's ruin, as they say, where you lose your entire bankroll? And the third question, how much of your bankroll are you actually prepared to lose? Okay, just drop those answers in there. I'm going to wait a second because there's a bit of a time delay here on the messages coming through to me. So I'm just going to wait a moment while those answers come through. Have a quick sip of tea. And the reason I'm asking these questions is these are kind of crucial to what we're going to be looking at tonight. These questions kind of form the foundations of some of the methods, some of the tactics that we're going to be looking at this evening. So, okay, Charlie's saying, what size bankroll is big enough? 150 pounds. Charlie, is that 150 pounds, £1 units? So is that a £1 bet or is that a £10 bet? What size are your stakes with that? So if you say it in units, the size of the bankroll in units, and that's kind of, that will let me know how many units you have in the bankroll, whether it's 10, 20, 100, 300, 1,000, whatever it might be. Plus the strike rate that you think you're going to need if you've got 100 units. So if you've got 100 units of £10 bets, that's obviously a £1,000 bankroll. If you've got 100 units of £1 bets, that's obviously a £100 bankroll. Okay, so we got some answers coming in here. That's awesome. So Petra is saying 100 to 150 units. I can see a whole lot of people have just joined us. If you've just joined us, I'm asking you 3 questions before we jump in today. 3 questions, and they are, what size bankroll do you think is big enough? Question 1. Question 2, what strike rate do you need with a 100-unit bankroll so that you don't lose it all, so that it's comfortable enough to cover any losing streaks and downswings? And number 3, how much of your bankroll are you actually prepared to lose? So Peter, this is great. So Peter's got 100 to 150 unit bankroll. He's prepared to lose 25% of it. No, sorry, I'm getting that wrong. 100 to 150 unit bankroll, 25% strike rate. A 25% strike rate, Petra is saying, to cope with that bankroll, those downswings. And he's prepared to lose all of it. Excellent. John, 300 units. So John wants a 300 unit bankroll. Probably needs about a 50% strike rate and prepared to lose at least 50% of it. Okay, this is awesome. Keep them coming. I'm going to wait a few more minutes just so we get some more answers coming in here because I can see people are typing away. And I do have a bit of a time delay. So bear with me while I have a sip of tea. And I'm asking these questions, if you just joined us, I'm asking these questions because these form the cornerstone of what we're going to look at tonight. In fact, they form the cornerstone of a lot of betting and whether you're going to be successful in it or not with sports betting and horse racing, obviously, in particular. And if you can't see all the questions, that's because some people are asking them on YouTube, some people are asking them on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you may not be seeing the YouTube questions. If you're on YouTube, you may not be seeing the Facebook questions. Okay, Paul, thank you very much there for the answer. Pardon me. So Paul is saying a 100-unit bankroll. You need a 50% strike rate to cope with it and prepared to lose 50% of it. John is saying the bankroll size isn't important, just at least £100 to get started with. You need a 33% strike rate, and we're going to lose it all. That's awesome. If you just joined, please keep answering those questions. I'm going to move on now. And I'm going to move on for a reason. So first of all, the biggest bankroll mistake that most bettors make, and this is why I started with these questions, the biggest bankroll mistake that most bettors make is they're not prepared to lose their entire bankroll. Pardon me, I got a tickle off that last cup of tea, that last sip of tea. Okay, the biggest bankroll mistake that most bettors make is they are not prepared to lose their entire bankroll. And we've had a few people who said yes, have to lose it all. We've had 25% of the bankroll. We've had 50% of the bankroll. Let me just check and see if a few more have come in. We've had 30% of the bankroll. So different amounts of the bankroll. Now, on average, people are kind of saying around 50% of the bankroll is what they're prepared to lose. However, and this is the big mistake. This is the big mistake that most bettors make. If you have £1,000 bankroll and you set your stake sizes based on £1,000, but you are only prepared to lose 50% of it, then you are overstaking. Okay, let me say that again. If you have £1,000 bankroll and you base your stake size on the fact that you have £1,000, but you are only prepared to lose 50% of it, you are overstaking because you are not comfortable losing the entire bankroll. You're only comfortable losing 50%, which would be £500. Therefore, to make sure you stay within that £500, you should be calculating your stakes based on a £500 bankroll to make sure that you're not actually overstaking what you are prepared to lose. Now, there's nothing to say you shouldn't keep that £1,000 or twice the bankroll you're prepared to lose in your betting account for comfort, for security. I totally get that. I totally understand that. I'm actually very similar. I like to have more in my betting account than I am prepared to lose. But your stake size should only be based on the amount that you're prepared to lose, because that is your true bankroll. That is your true bankroll. And if you are calculating your stake size on any more than you are prepared to lose, then you will be overstaking. And if you're overstaking, you're far, far more likely to lose the bankroll you're prepared to lose. And I know that may mean that your stakes are going to drop in size, but it will also mean that you're actually staking properly and you're reducing the risk of losing what you're prepared to lose, and you're actually giving the strategy that you're using the proper chance to succeed. Okay, if there's any questions on that, let me know. And just to go back quickly over a couple of the messages about how much a 100-unit bankroll will allow you to have a drawdown. What strike rate would you need to have as a minimum with a 100-unit bankroll? Based on around 5 selections a day, you're going to need to have at least a 30% strike rate for a 100-unit bankroll. Anything less than that, you're likely to lose your entire bankroll. It's not going to be big enough. It's very likely. So at the minimum, you should have a 30% strike rate for a 100-unit bankroll. Any strike rate less, and if you're using any sort of selections, wherever they're from, that have a strike rate of less than 30%, and they're saying the bankroll only needs to be 100 units or even less than 100 units, you are very likely to lose that bankroll mathematically. Okay, so now that's kind of why I wanted to jump into that first. Okay, so this bankroll mistake is absolutely critical. I cannot say it often enough. If you must calculate your stakes based on what you're prepared to lose. No. So what you're prepared to lose is the key, not actually the amount of money in the betting account. Okay, and as John has just said, he has a 300-unit bankroll. He's prepared to lose 50% of it. And John, I hope that when you calculate your stakes, you're basing them on the 150 units, not the 300 units. Okay. 100 units, a 25% strike rate to have a drawdown of about 65 units. Okay, so Brian, that's a great question. Thank you very much for answering. Assuming 5 bets a day, you're actually likely to have a drawdown of around about 105, 115 units at 25% over the course of a year. Doesn't mean you're going to get that every year, but you are likely to have that. And you could obviously have more. You could potentially have a drawdown of 120 units. So you really want to go for the 30% strike rate or higher with a 100-unit bankroll. For a 25% strike rate, you want to be more like 120, 130, 140 unit bankroll. Okay. I'm going to move on now because I want to get into trainers and jockeys, love or hate them. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm going to be totally honest with you all here. I am not a trainers and jockeys fan. And if you've been following the Race Advisor for any period of time, you're going to know that I am not a trainers and jockeys guy. I very, very rarely use them. So the question then is, why the heck am I talking about them? Okay, so I'm talking about them because I know that they can be a very good guiding point, and I know a lot of other bettors are very successful with them. But the credit for what I'm actually going to share with you tonight has to go to Eddie Lloyd, who shared this tactic with me a long time ago. And I don't know if Eddie's on today, but if he is on today, big thank you, Eddie. So this basic tactic was shared by Eddie Lloyd with me many, many years ago. And it's still one that I use today. It's still one we base a lot of things on. So when I do use trainers and jockeys, this is how I go about using them. Okay. So thank you, Eddie, for that. Most people either love or hate trainers and jockeys. And let me know whether you like trainers and jockeys. Is trainers and jockeys the first thing you look at when you start analyzing a race, or do you kind of come to them later, or do you kind of ignore them? A huge amount of bettors start with trainers and jockeys. A huge amount of horse racing fans love trainers and jockeys because there is a belief that the trainers are obviously in control of the training of the racehorse, the jockeys in control of riding the racehorse. So these are the people guiding that horse to success or failure with an individual race. Let me know if you love or hate trainers and jockeys. I'm going to assume that most of you love it, but I would love to actually know rather than assume. Okay, so there's a lot of trainer and jockey data that is out there. And some of those ones are going to be strike rate, the trainer strike rate, the jockey strike rate, profit. Have they made a profit? The course preferences, the distance preferences, the horse preference. Like a jockey may have a preference for riding a specific horse. You'll see jockeys that love riding specific horses. They're kind of in sync with the animal. And obviously, an animal and a human can very much be in sync with each other. And you may really not get on with another horse or another animal. So there is a horse preference out there as well. And the same goes, of course, with trainers. Some trainers may just really have a feeling, be in touch with a particular horse. So this horse preference is a real tangible connection that a human can have with a horse. And then obviously we've got race type preferences, and these are just 6 examples. And that's before we start getting into the various combinations of data that we can have, such as course and distance preferences, or course and race type preferences, or race type and distance, or ground preferences, or distance, course and race type preferences, or trainer and jockey over the course, or trainer and jockey over the course and race type, and so it goes on. And obviously for all of these combinations, we can be looking at strike rates and profit. We can look at the AE scores to see if there's an advantage or not. We've got all these other stats that lay over each of these various combinations and how they work together. Maybe different preferences combined, trainer separately, trainer and jockey together. The list, quite honestly, the list is totally endless. Absolutely, totally endless. And it's great to see some of you letting me know whether you like trainers and jockeys, because Peter is saying he doesn't. John saying that trainer form is very, very important and will never bet on bad jockeys, even at small odds. Neil is saying the better known jockeys don't necessarily try, in his opinion, they don't try 100% in midweek racing because they see it as easy money for the riding fees, and backing big name jockeys midweek isn't profitable, in his opinion. So keep letting me know whether you love or hate trainers and jockeys. There's definitely a mixed opinions going on here, which is wonderful. So there is a huge amount of trainer and jockey data. So how do we get inside this? How do we start digging through this mass of information to actually find the important things that we want to look at, to find the horses that we want to focus on? So we do this with one word, and that word is shortlisting. In order to cut through all this noise that's going on with the data, and there's a lot of noise in horse racing data, even when you look at a kind of a subset of it, like trainers and jockeys, there's a huge amount of noise, a huge amount of ways that you can interpret it. So in order to cut through that noise and actually find the horses that we want to focus on, we need to shortlist. It's the only way, quite literally the only way. We need a shortcut method to come up with contenders. And we can do this with a single rule. That rule is to focus only on horses whose trainers and jockeys both have a strike rate of 17% or higher. If a trainer and jockey both have a strike rate of 17% or higher, they're performing well. Okay, so this is then, they become above average. They become higher than the average performance. So we want to focus only on those horses whose trainers and jockeys both have a strike rate of 17% or higher. Now, when I say 17% or higher, what time frame is this on? I know some people are going to ask this. Is it 14 days, 7 days, 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years? So for me, I like to look at their strike rate all time. All-time strike rate, 17% or higher. Because actually, I'm looking for long-term performance. I'm not looking for, are you a hot stable or not a hot stable? We can cover that in another event. That's absolutely fine, but that's not what we're looking at here. We're not looking for hot streaks or cold streaks. We're looking for consistent performance above the average. We're looking for the best of the best. We're looking for trainers and jockeys who are performing well consistently throughout their careers. Okay. I can see some questions coming in. Please do ask any questions you have along the way. I'm going to come back to them in a few minutes before we jump over and look at some live races. So any questions, please do drop them in there, and I'll come back to them before we jump over in a moment and look at some live races. So once we do that, once we look at trainers and jockeys that have a 17% or higher strike rate, we know the connections are strong. We know the connection. When we say connections, we are talking about the horse's connection. So that's trainer, jockey, owner. But we don't really, we can look at owners, but there's not a huge benefit to that in my experience. So we focus generally on trainers and jockeys when we say connections, but it does include owners as well. So any human connection to the horse. So the trainers, the jockeys, we know they're strong because we know both of them have got a strike rate of over 17% over their entire career. They perform well. They're strong performers. And you probably can say, if you're a horse racing fan, you can probably say a number of trainers straight off the bat that you think are going to have that. But there's going to be a lot more than the names you immediately recognize. And now that we know that the connections are strong, and before we spend any time looking at any particular horse, we need to make sure the horse is also potentially strong, because obviously a trainer may have multiple horses at a racetrack and a jockey's going to ride multiple horses at a racetrack. So if we find a trainer and jockey that have a strike rate of over 17%, or both of them have a strike rate of over 17%, we're going to have more than one horse that day that they're riding. So again, we're going to need to shrink. We're going to need to shrink this back down. And to do that, we want to have a quick look to see that the horse is potentially going to be a strong runner as well. And so to do that, we make sure that each horse has a strike rate of at least 17% for either the going, the distance, or the course. Doesn't have to have it for all of them, but it has to have won at least 17% of its races over the same going, distance, or course. At least one of them. The more, the better, but at least one of them. And that shows us that actually there is a shred of evidence that makes it worthwhile our investigating this horse further, because now we know the connections are strong, and now we know that actually there is some indication that this horse can perform over similar conditions. Without that, we've got absolutely no idea. And remember, we're shortlisting here. We're shortlisting. We're trying to reduce that field down. We're trying to start with connections. We're trying to find the strongest connections that day at all courses. Once we find those strongest connections, we then grab all of their runners and we look at all of the runners, and there could be quite a few. And then we're going, okay, we've got all these runners and we know their connections are pretty strong. So what are we going to do now? Well, we want a strike rate of at least 17%. We want some form of evidence that's going to be worth our time to investigate them further. And that's what that does. That 17% on either ground, distance, or course, that tells us whether it's worth our time to investigate further. Doesn't mean it's going to be a selection. Doesn't mean we're going to bet on that horse. But it tells us that it's worth our time to look into that horse in more detail. Okay, so now we've got this short list of contenders for the day, and it's based initially on the strongest connections for those horses. So we're going to take these horses, and then we're going to confirm that they have actually run a good race before, that they can perform over similar conditions to today's race, and then we're going to decide if they're a strong selection to follow or not. And then obviously once we've decided that, we can decide how we want to bet on them based on the odds and the strength that we think they actually have. Okay, I'm going to jump over now and just have a quick look to see if there are any questions. If you've got a question up to this point, please let me know. If you missed a bit of it, that's fine. Drop a question in and let me know. I'm going to jump over now. I can see there's definitely one. If any more come in while I'm answering that, I will go through those, and then we're going to look at how we can actually implement this in live racing. Okay. Okay, Robert started to Scott. Sorry, jockeys that suit running style. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Jockeys that have a specific style of running preference. I'm not going to be looking into that today, but Scott, yes, that is obviously definitely an angle. Robert used to look mostly at trainers, but started to read Bayer. If you haven't heard of Bayer, Andy Bayer is an American horse racing author, analyst, better. Done amazing stuff on speed. His classic book, Bayer on Speed, well worth a read. It's kind of out of date now, but the foundations of it and the principles in it are absolutely solid. You should definitely grab that book and read it. It is quite comparatively mathematical, so take your time going through it, but it's definitely worth a read. But there are also things known as horse racing patterns that Bayer looks at as well. So how do you find patterns with jockeys and trainers? And again, that is something we can look at in another live event if there is enough interest. William, do you use draw bias to help pick selections? Do you use draw bias to help pick selections? I personally don't use draw bias to help pick selections, and there's a reason for that. That is because in a previous analysis of draw bias, I found that the market had, generally speaking, taken into account any draw bias that there was on the track. So I tend to not use it. Now, that analysis I did, it was a few years ago now, so it would be worth redoing it. Also to say that just because the market is already taking into account that information, if we're analyzing a race manually, that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider it, because that slight advantage can come in and kind of influence possibly the odds we may take. Maybe we'll take slightly lower odds, slightly higher odds based on it. So I'm not saying you shouldn't use draw bias. There is definitely some advantage to be had, particularly over extreme ground conditions. So if I am to use draw bias, I'm more likely to use it on extreme ground conditions than kind of more standard ground conditions, because that's where we get to see the draw bias have a bigger effect in terms of advantage, generally speaking. Okay, so since no more questions have come in, if you have any more questions, please do let me know. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over to the software. So as you can imagine, finding all the trainers and all the jockeys each day that have 17% strike rate or higher, and then finding all the horses that have a 17% strike rate or higher, can be a bit of a slog. It can take a little while to go through all of that information to get that shortlist itself. So to get that shortlist itself, that can take some time. So what we have is, let me show you my screen. So here we go. Okay, so what we have here is obviously the RA Pro members dashboard. And if you haven't got an account yet, head over to raceadvisor.co.uk, create your account. We got RA Pro members dashboard. If we scroll down this dashboard, we got today's stat pack here. Now, obviously, this is for today's racing, which is finished. So I'm going to jump over at the top here to tomorrow's racing. And then I'm going to scroll down again. And here we've got today's stat pack. And you can see that. Now, if I click on the View All button, that's going to open up this page. And this page just shows you every single trainer, every single horse racing that day that has a trainer with a strike rate of more than 17%. And if we scroll down, we're going to see the jockeys exactly the same as well. Where am I? Jockeys. See you go. Here's a jockey for this particular race at Newton Abbott. So you can see every single horse that has a trainer that has a strike rate of over 17%, and underneath that, every single jockey that has a strike rate of over 17%. They're all listed there nice and simply, but we take it one step further to make it even easier, because back here on the dashboard, under today's stat pack, we have this short list of horses. You'll notice that's not all of them. These horses also have a strike rate of over 17% on either the ground, course, or conditions. Or distance. Ground, course, or distance. Okay. So we have that shortlist there. If you want to see all of those horses listed out, you can come back to this page here where we went to the view all and keep scrolling down and you'll see the strongest runners here. And you can actually see whether it was ground, distance or going that they had that on. And you can see across the board, you can see that obviously in the 5:15 at Hamilton here, it's Julie Johnston, trainer Johnston, obviously, M. Johnston, sorry, 21% strike rate. Fanning is the jockey, 17% strike rate there. Not had a strike rate on the same going over the course, but there's a 40% strike rate for the horse over the distance. And actually, all of these tomorrow have the same strike rate over the distance, or have got that extra thing over the distance. But we have the shortlist, so you can get the details there. But we have the shortlist here on your dashboard. So there they are, shortlisted immediately. Now, as we say, these aren't selections. We're not going to go out and straight bet on them because we need to look at these in a little bit more detail. But we know that tomorrow, these 7 horses that we have here are worth spending some more time on. It is a shortlist. If I come back up here and come back today, generally speaking, there's between kind of about 1, 2, and 8 usually. You see today there were just 2. Occasionally there'll be days where there aren't any. Let's see if there's any for Wednesday yet. Yeah, Wednesday we got quite a few here. Big day Wednesday for these. But anyway, we're going to come back to today and have a look at what we do next here. And again, if you've got any questions on this, please drop them in as I go along. And don't forget as well to hit the share button, hit the like button, whether on YouTube or Facebook, hit that button. Please do let other people know that you're enjoying this, that you're watching us on this live. So what do? We've got these horses here. So let's just take the first one, 2 o'clock at Ripon. In fact, I'll remember the second one as well, the 3:30 at Ripon. So we've got Delft Crescent in the 2 o'clock. We've got Pythagoras in the 3:30. We'll take those 2. They're at the same course, just as an example. So I've already forgotten. 2 o'clock and 3:30. Right, 2 o'clock. Here we go. Let's open the 2 o'clock at Ripon. So we know now we're just focusing on a single horse. We just want to look at this horse in a little bit more detail. Delft Crescent's down here. So this race is quite far down tomorrow. So I'm actually just going to click on these odds. When the race is so far away, our odds only are updating kind of every few hours. That is a feature that's going to be upgraded at the beginning of next year to have a millisecond update on every single race, however far in the future. But when it's tomorrow, we're still currently only updating those odds every few hours. So these odds are going to be out of date now. So since we're looking at it, I've just clicked on the odds to open the market. So before I look at the market, I'm just going to have a quick look at the race and see what we've got. We've got Delft Crescent down here. Okay, so let's just open this horse and have a look at past form. Okay, so here's this horse's past form. Now this race is a flat turf race, class 4, good to soft ground, 1 mile, 1 furlong with about £6.5 prize money. Okay, and I'm just going to scroll down. This is how quick it is. And you'll see me doing this again and again and again. Always, it's worth just jumping into the horse's form very quickly to have a quick look at what's going on there. Has it performed well over similar conditions? And I don't mean it doesn't have to have won. It just has to come within a few lengths of the winner. It has to indicate it can run well over similar conditions. So we're looking at flat races only. We're looking at good to soft ground. We're looking at 1 mile, 1 furlong. So the first few races here are a bit too long. Coming down here, 1 mile, 2 furlong, softer ground, beaten 6.5 lengths. Coming down 1 mile, 1 furlong, firm ground. Here we go, Haydock, class 5, so a lower class than today, only a furlong longer, soft ground, beaten 12 lengths. Coming down heavy ground here, beaten 2.5 lengths. That's the first indication, the 5th of October 2019 at Redcar, this race here, that this horse might be able to perform over similar ground conditions, similar distance to today's race. Beaten 2.5 lengths. We keep going down. We're looking for softer ground. Doncaster. Here we go. 1 mile, 2 furlong. 17th of August. We keep coming down here. Good to soft. 1 mile, 1 furlong. Ripon. Almost exactly the same race that this horse is going to be on today. Class 4 at Ripon. 5K. Slightly lower prize money. Very similar. Carrying 8.12. Today, this horse is carrying 8.5, so actually carrying less. Was beaten 3.45 lengths. No extra. Notice that there was no extra. Let's come back up to the first one here. If we hover over, we get the in-running comments. Kept on at the final furlong, but couldn't get up there. One here by 3 lengths, kept on strongly. Okay, let's keep going down here. Soft ground, beaten 12.9 lengths. That's good to firm, good to firm. We keep going down. Here we go, flat. That's too high class. That's 16K. Coming back down here. We've got any more? Down here, Pontefract. This one down here at the bottom. 1 mile, a bit shorter than today's race, beaten 9.8 lengths. So what we have here is we have a couple of races kind of mid to end of last year that indicated this horse might be able to perform well. And since then, it's just performed pretty horrendously. Best performance recently was the 23rd of June. Came 2 lengths behind over good to firm, 1 mile 1 furlong, carrying 8.13. So there's a couple of things to note here. First of all is the weight is carrying a lot less today. It's only carrying 8.5 today, but was carrying 8.5 here on good to firm. I was beating 10 lengths, which isn't very promising. It does tend to have a slight preference for the softer ground, possibly. That's definitely indicated here, so the ground's going to like. But there isn't really much there standing out that makes us think this horse is super strong. Okay, so let's just jump back over here to the actual race card and have a quick look at the race card here. And we could jump into all sorts of ratings and strategies and everything else, but I'm just going to use a couple of very simple things now to tell us whether they think this horse is going to be strong or not. First of all, we're going to look at the PR odds. I'm going to sort by probability, just the raw PR odds. And Delft Crescent is right down here at the bottom. Scroll up there. 3% we gave, just under 4% chance. Okay, so that's not strong. Next, let me open the standard race cards and one of my own race cards here. In fact, let's come back first. Before I do that, I just want to come back to here. I've got a connections race card. This is a custom race card. You can make as many custom race cards as you like inside the Race Advisor if you're a pro member. So interestingly here, this is just showing me strike rate profits for the trainer over the course and the jockey over the course for both the place and the win market. So I can see here that the trainer has made a profit over this course in the win market, but not in the place market, and the jockey, pardon me, and the jockey hasn't. So the trainer's got a 36% strike, sorry, that's the jockey. Trainer's got a 21% strike rate at the course. The jockey has a 36% strike rate at the course. This is specific to course now. Earlier we were looking at 17% over the entire career. This is specific to course. So they both like the course. Jockey particularly likes the course. If you bet on every runner that the jockey had been on this course, you'd have made a loss of 1 unit. The jockey's got a 53% strike rate at this course. So the Sousa's got a 53% strike rate at this course for the place market and a 36% strike rate for win market at this course. Trainer, which is Fahy, has a 38% place strike rate at this course and 21%. So that's just a little bit of useful information if we do decide we want to bet on this horse. But let's come over to the standard race card because the PR odds is telling us that this is pretty poor. And I'm just going to run a Monte Carlo simulation now, just to see how it is. I'm going to use all the standard settings, including the standard race card. We can again run the simulation on a non-standard race card, on a custom race card. I'm going to do that. While the simulation's running, I'm just going to jump over and see if we've got any questions. Okay, so Flying Benny is saying that would rather be in stall 1 than stall 12 at Chester over 5 furlongs. Fair enough. Stuart, would draw information, let me just drop this up here, would draw information be more worthwhile if observing races on the day and if there is a bias on the day? Okay, yes. It's about how you determine what that bias is on the day. So obviously you can do that by listening to the races. You can do that by, if you're calculating speed figures on the fly, you can actually see on your speed figures if there might be a bias coming from a particular draw. That's probably the best way to do it on the day, seeing if there's a particular edge from a draw using speed figures if you are calculating them on the fly. But if you're not calculating them on the fly, it's going to be quite hard to do it, and the sample size is likely to be small. So, well, it will be small. So again, I would say that you'd only want to do that. I think you'd want to compare that to the draw bias over similar race conditions, and that's going distance course. Similar race conditions historically, and then possibly track on the day as well and see how they're aligning. If you're seeing that there's a bias going towards the same as the historic bias, then jump in and possibly use that. Okay, I hope that answers that question. All right, the simulation has finished here. Any more questions again, please do answer. And I'm going to run back through the initial tactic as well to how we get this shortlist at the beginning. How we did that at the beginning. I'm going to run through that again at the end for anybody who missed out on the beginning bit. Okay, so I've just closed out the simulation. I'm going to reopen it so I can sort by horse, and there we go. And we can see here that Delft Crescent is sitting right in the middle here. So there's nothing particularly strong there indicating this horse has any particular edge or advantage. And if we jump over to the market now, see what the market is saying. Again, currently this horse is third in the market. We've got Olympic Conqueror as the favorite, El Picador a second favorite, Delft Crescent as the third favorite. So there's nothing standing out to me that makes me want to strongly bet on this horse. So I would have two options here. I could say, well, the horse is third favorite in the market. Maybe I'm missing something and dig in further. But I would then need to start looking at the entire race card and the other horses to see the comparison. So I'm no longer just focusing on that shortlist we made earlier, or I'm going to skip on the race, move on to the next race. And what I'm going to do is going to skip on the race, move to the next race. So the next race was the 330. This is the second race we're going to look at today, and then I'm going to jump back to that initial tactic, how we create this shortlist. Okay, so here's the 330 race. It was Pythagoras that was shortlisted in this race. We see Pythagoras is up here. So we're going to open Pythagoras' history just by clicking on that horse's name. We're going to share that tab. Now, this is a nursery race. There's not going to be much history here. And I particularly like using trainers and jockeys on the times when I do use them. I like using them on the races where we don't have much history for the horses, because that's, for me, where the information becomes more valuable combined with the market information. So here we can see this race. This race at Ripon, the 330 race, is a flat race, class 4, good to soft ground, distance of 1 mile with prize money of just under $6 grand. So we can see here both the past races have been flat. The prize money is a little bit lower than what we're getting today. Good to firm ground as opposed to good to soft ground. So we've got this slight change in ground here, but essentially over a very similar distance, 7 furlongs, just short of a mile. So I'm not too worried about the distance. And in both races, this horse performed exceptionally. The last race it won by 1.75 lengths. The previous race won by 0.3, was beaten by 0.3 lengths. So that's really good. That's really strong. It shows the horse can perform. The question mark is over the ground. The ground is now good to soft, not good to firm. How's it going to do on it? Happier with good to soft than soft or going on heavy or soft to heavy, because at least there is going to be some hold in the ground. There's going to be some support there for the horse. It's not suddenly dropping into anything else. The extra 2 pounds in weight shouldn't really make a difference for this runner in this race, so I'm not really worried about that. So jumping back over to the race con, that initial assessment is good. It feels strong. We'll do the same thing. We're going to open the PR odds here, sort by probability. We've got Pythagoras showing at the top in this race, 35% raw probability score. Intsgal showing 29% here. So we've got a bit of a gap. Pythagoras is looking to be the strongest there. Intsgal then kind of coming in a little bit lower. And then there's a bigger drop down to a Zookeeper who's in third place. Obviously, there's only 6 runners in this race, so it's a smaller field. Okay, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to run that Monte Carlo simulator, just try and get a quick overview of how we feel about this horse under other conditions. And of course, you can go into more depth than this. And if you have the time, I strongly recommend that you do. I'm just going through a quick overview of how we can take that short list of the horses that we found using the connections, cut them down to decide actually whether they're likely to be a selection for us or not. So while that's running, I'm just going to open the market as well, so we can take a look at that in a moment. Now I'm going to jump over, see if there are any questions. No more questions at the moment. If you've got any questions, please do drop them in now. Drop them into the comments section. And if you haven't yet created a pro account on the Race Advisor, please head over to raceadvisor.co.uk and create that account now. Okay, so that simulation is about to finish. And if you've joined us, if you missed what we were doing at the beginning, here is how we are shortlisting. While that simulation is just finishing off, here is how we are shortlisting the horses that we are finding. So what we're doing to shortlist the horses that we're finding is we are focusing on horses whose jockeys and trainers, both of them, have an independent strike rate of 17% or higher. They both have to have that to make the connection strong. And that's a strike rate over their entire careers. This is a long-term strike. This is showing us that these trainers and jockeys are at the top of their game. They are above the average trainer and jockey. They have an edge, they have an advantage because they are stronger than the average trainer and jockey. So we are focusing initially on shortlisting only horses whose trainers and jockeys have a strike rate of over 17%. Then, once we know the connections are strong, we're then going in to find whether it's worth our time to look at those horses in more detail, because it's not going to be worth our time to look at all those horses in detail. There will be a lot of horses every day that have that condition for the connections, that have strong connections. So we need to shrink that shortlist even further, and we do that by making sure each horse has the potential to be strong. And that is done by checking that the horse has at least a 17% strike rate or higher over the ground, over the distance, or over the course. Either of those three. If it's got it over more than one, that is even better. But we want to make sure that the horse has the potential to be strong before we spend our time digging into it further. So we confirm it over the ground, distance, and course. The horse also has a strike rate of at least 17% over one of those. That's what we're doing. And then once we have done that, we can then know that we're going to dig into those horses in a little bit more detail. Now, if you want to shortcut the process of going through all the horses and doing that, you can use RA Pro, and because on the dashboard of RA Pro, if I scroll down here, you'll see today's stat pack, and this shortlists every day these horses that meet that criteria. All these horses have trainers and jockeys that have a strike rate of 17% or higher, and each of these horses has a 17% strike rate or higher over the ground, course, or distance. So we know that these horses are worth our time investigating a bit further. Okay. Let's come back over now to that Monte Carlo simulator. And we're just looking at a couple of the horses. We've already looked at one. We decided to pass on it. We're looking at Pythagoras now in the 3:30 at Ripon tomorrow. And we're now just confirming whether that horse might be worth our while betting on or not. We always want to check them. The shortlisting is a shortlisting process. We then know that these horses are worth our time to investigate. We then need to go and do that investigation. So this Monte Carlo simulation is run. Pythagoras is already looking strong. In terms of the Monte Carlo simulation, we can see here Pythagoras is looking strong there as well. It's given it actually just under a 21% chance based on that Monte Carlo simulation on the standard race card. It might be different on different race cards, but on the standard race card, it's giving it a 21% chance. With it won 62%, nearly 63% of all its pairings within the simulation. So Pythagoras is looking strong there. So let's take a quick look at the market, see if the market agrees with us currently. Here's the market. Again, I'm looking at it live because this race is 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. We only update every couple of hours for races tomorrow. It becomes much faster on the day of racing and up to the time of race where it's pretty much real time. But for tomorrow, it's a little bit behind, so I'm just going to double check the market. So if you're looking at races tomorrow, always double check the market as well to make sure. So we can see here Pythagoras is currently favorite 2.72. So the market's agreeing with us. Everything's looking kind of nice and strong. So now we have a question. Do we just want to look at are we going to bet on this horse, or do we want to dig in further? We could dig in further, but for the sake of this live, I'm just going to say this looks like a strong horse. We've confirmed it. It was on our shortlist. We've dug in. We've seen it can perform well over similar conditions. We've got a couple of confirmation signals from the PR odds. It's got the highest PR odds. It's the highest in the Monte Carlo simulator using the standard race car. So we've got a couple of indicators that it's confirming that strength. We are aware that this horse is only run on good to firm ground. The ground's likely to be good to soft tomorrow. So there could be a bit of a ground condition there. We don't know whether it's going to run well on that or not well on that. So there is a little bit of risk associated with that there. And if we're going to bet on this horse, that needs to be taken into account. Jumping back over to the market, at the moment, we've only got the win and the basic place markets. There are no extra markets yet. They will appear later. 2.74 for the win. In the place market, it is currently 1.62. And here in the each way market, it is 2.66 with the each way, the place part paying a quarter of the odds. Now, just out of interest, that means that the place part is paying 1.42. The place part is paying 1.42. Yet you can bet on this horse in the place market at 1.62. So you do not want, if you're going to go each way, you do not want to use currently at the moment, as the odds stand, the each way market on Betfair, because you're only going to get 1.42 odds for the place, whereas actually you could just bet it in the place market and get 1.62. Also notice the win market is currently 2.74. Whereas the each way win market is only 2.66. So currently, it is a bad bet to place an each way on the each way market on Betfair. You'd be far better off splitting your stake in half and placing half on the win, half on the place market. So for me, this is a nursery race. So in nursery races, also like to take into account the markets, what it's telling us, because we haven't got much history for the horses. Currently, it is telling us that Pythagoras is strong. I probably want to check this again closer to the time just to see how the market's forming. I tend to prefer betting closer to the off. It's just my preference. Closer to the off, these odds may have dropped. So there's advantages both ways. My preference is just to go closer to the off. So I will probably place a bet on this horse. And I will probably be, I'm aware of the soft ground. I'm looking at the place market here. I would possibly go for the win, straight win on this runner. The each way, it's not worthwhile betting, because if we took a £10 stake and I put £5 on it to place, you see I'm only going to win £3.14 if it places. So if it places, I'm actually going to lose £2 from the win stake. So I'm still going to be in a loss. So there's no point doing an each way bet at these odds. You only want to do an each way bet if you can make a profit on the place portion. I could do an 80-20. An 80-20 would mean placing £8 of a £10 bet on it to place and £2 on it to win. And you can see here, if it only came in the top two, that would be £5. I would lose a £2 win stake, so I'd still be a profit of £3. So I still make a 30% if it came in the top two. But is that worth it for just a two-place market? For me, probably not. I'll probably just go for a bet here in the win market. So I'll probably just come over to the win market and place a bet in there and go with it like that and just take those odds. As I say, usually I would place that bet close to the odds. I'd like to check the market. And I'll just leave the rest of it sitting there. There's obviously not enough to take that stake, but it will get matched slowly over time. Okay, so that's how this works. If you've got anything, if you've got any questions, please drop them in now. We'll go through any questions if there are any over the last 10 minutes. The questions can be related to what we have been talking about today in terms of the strategy. It can be anything to do with horse racing. It can be anything to do with the Race Advisor. If you've not yet joined RA Pro, please do head over to raceadvisor.co.uk and create your account there. Come and join our pro community, and you can get access to all of the tools, the strategies, our success bridges, and how we're going to build that out and help you. I will help you personally create those strategies, develop those strategies to become profitable and to find that horse racing success. So just jumping over to the comments, Flying Bendy, yes, I got all the angles there covered with Pythagoras. It doesn't look like we've got any more matched yet here. Let me just see. No, we've still got kind of £13 outstanding on that £25 stake. We've got 20 quid over here. I think these odds are probably actually going to drop on this horse. I might be proven to be totally wrong on that, but my gut would say these odds might drop on this horse coming up to race time tomorrow. But we'll have to wait and see. Okay. So if there are any questions, please drop them in now. I'll wait a couple more minutes to see if we've got any questions. If there aren't any questions, that's fine. We'll call it in a night. I will run through while we're waiting for the questions, just exactly what we have done today. So the strategy that we are looking at is to find connections that have, horses that have strong connections. To find the strong connections, we are looking only for horses that have a 17% to a higher than 17% strike rate for the trainer and the jockey, both of them. We require both the jockey to have over 17% strike rate. That tells us the connections are above average for the horse. Then, knowing that the connections are above average for the horse, we then take the horse, and we want to know whether it's worth us spending time on that runner. Do we want to spend our valuable time? Time is our most valuable resource. Do we want to spend it investigating these horses? There's going to be quite a few of these each day. So to make sure for that, we want to show the horse has potential. And to do that, we check whether the horse has got 17% strike rate or higher. That means has it won 17% or more of its races over the same ground conditions, the same distance, or the same course. We only need it to have won 17% or more of the races over one of those criteria: ground, course, or distance. If it has, it shows us that there is the potential for this horse to be strong in the race. That doesn't mean it's a selection. That means it's a potential. It goes on our final shortlist to look at in further. It is worth our time to investigate this horse in more detail. That is what it's telling us. Then when we do that, and we can get this shortlist, straight. If you're an RA Pro member, you can get this shortlist straight off the dashboard here. We open the day's racing, comes straight onto your dashboard every morning, and it's here. It's under today's stat pack. These are the horses that are shortlisted based on this technique, and you'll also get them in the daily digest, which gets emailed out around 7-8 o'clock every single morning. So you have this shortlist of those horses that you know it is worth your time to look at in more detail. Doesn't mean they are straight out selections. We still need to investigate them to find out whether it's worthwhile betting on them. Then we just need to confirm the strength of the horse. And we've done that twice this evening on tomorrow's races. We first of all looked at Delft Crescent in the 2 o'clock at Ripon. The horse didn't look so strong. Looked like it might have a preference for the ground condition, but otherwise there was nothing to indicate it was really strong that we might want to bet on it. It was currently third in the market. But again, there was nothing indicating as a brief overview. For the brief overview, we looked at its racing history. Has it performed in similar conditions in the past? We spent a couple of minutes on that. Then we used a couple of tools. We used the PR odds to give us an overview of the probability that we've assigned this horse. It was right at the bottom. We then used a Monte Carlo simulator to create another guideline as to the strength of the horse. Again, it was kind of sitting in the middle somewhere, so nothing huge. The market was saying it was third. So maybe there is some disparity here, but maybe it is that race is tomorrow. It's 2 o'clock tomorrow. So the market's not properly formed yet. So the market just actually may not be right. It may be people on Betfair trying to get a shoe in, trying to get some odds. I don't know without looking at some of the bookmakers' odds. But for us, there was nothing to indicate any strength there. So that gave us two options. The option was either to look at that race in more detail, in which case we have to look at the entire race. We have to take into account the other runners, and we are no longer using that shortlist. We are actually analyzing the race. We go and dig into that race to see how all the horses compare with each other using one of the strategies that we've got in RA Pro, in your members area. One of those strategies is your foundation, your starting point, or another technique using whatever of the tools you prefer to use. The other option, which is the one I took this evening, is we're just going to skip on that race and pass because there's nothing strong pointing out. So we took that option, we skipped on it, we passed to the 3:30 at Ripon, where Pythagoras here was the short-listed horse. We dug into Pythagoras. The horse performed very well over similar conditions. It was top for the PR odds on the shortlist as a quick summary. It was also top for the Monte Carlo simulator, and there was quite a step down to the next horse in the field. So it looked strong from both of those kind of bird's eye views, overview of the race, without digging in any deeper. That bird's eye view shows the horse looked quite strong. The only concern was it's not raced on the ground conditions yet. So it was a nursery race, in which case the market's quite important. Currently the horse's favorite in the market. That indicates people are thinking it is going to be able to perform under those ground conditions. Now, I would usually prefer to wait in these races because I prefer betting as close to the off as possible because I like to see a fully formed market, particularly on these races. I also have a preference for using trainers and jockeys on races where there's less form history for the horses. But I would wait until close to the time, see how that market forms, see if Pythagoras was still a favorite. But for the sake of this evening, we then looked at the market to see how we might want to bet on the horse. At the moment, the place market, it wasn't really worthwhile. Certainly not for the two places. Maybe when the extra markets appear later, there might be some value to be had there. But so I just went the straight win bet personally on this market. Usually, as I say, I would wait until close to the time, till tomorrow, to see how the market forms before betting on this horse. But so that's what we have gone through this evening, and we can see here now that actually that bet's been entirely matched now on Betfair at 2.74. The market's actually already dropped down to 2.72 on the backside. There's obviously a big disparity between back and lay because it's so early on. I mean, we've only got 800 quid matched on this market, so it's laying at 2.9 and it's backing at 2.72 now. So we'll see whether those odds drop or don't drop. So if you've got any questions on that, drop them in now. I'm going to go through the questions now, and then we'll wrap up for this evening. Okay, Stephen. Stephen, it would be nice to receive 4-horse tips for a lucky 15. Let's see. Lucky 15. There's a lot of people who love the lucky 15. It's a very, very popular bet, the lucky 15 bet. Have a look. You can use this technique to find horses for multiples, exotic, because actually the structure of a bet is totally separate to find the strength of a horse. And these things get confused in horse racing all the time. So the things in horse racing are separated, and they should be separated. So actually, we start by looking at staking and bankroll and our comfort zones. That's the number one. That's the foundation. That's the building block. That's the beginning of your bridge to success. Without that, there is no bridge. You're just jumping off a cliff. So you've got to start with that foundation. Your comfort zones, your personality, your time available, all of these things. That is the beginning point of the foundation. Then we try and work from that foundation to make sure that everything is done to suit your comfort zones, your bankroll, and your time. That has to work. If that doesn't work, whatever you do is not going to be profitable, because either you're going to be cutting short on time, or you're going to be staking too big, or you're going to be having losing streaks that you're uncomfortable with. So that's the foundation. That's where we start. That's where we put the sticks in to build our bridge. Then we continue building that bridge to success by working out the strategies that move us across. And the steps that we put in place, the planks that we put down to go across that canyon, to move across that bridge, to build that bridge, to get to the success on the other side, those planks are all tailored towards different focal points as we go. And actually the profit, we don't focus on that because the profit is a byproduct of crossing the bridge. We will make that profit when we cross the bridge. We know that. We don't need to focus on profit. If we focus on profit, if you're focusing on profit at the beginning, then you're trying to jump off a half-made bridge and get to the other side without moving gradually across, doing each stage as you need to do. So we then look at how do we find the strongest horses? Are we finding them often enough are we winning often enough to actually have a strike rate that has losing streaks that we're comfortable with? And we take these steps across the bridge. And those are the steps that I go through with our members. And then we get to the point of actually we know how strong a horse is, because when you know how strong a horse is, then you can decide how to bet it. Because then you can look at the odds and say, actually, those odds aren't giving me, they're high enough, or they're way too low, or they're, wow, why are they so high? Maybe I should double check my analysis. Maybe I should have a quick look again just to make sure I've not missed something, because they seem to be much higher than they should be. So then you can structure your bet. And if you want to put them into a lucky 15, that's awesome. If you want to go win, place, 80-20, again, that is tailored to your own preferences, your own risk, how well you cope with losing sequences. Maybe you're going to be doing place bets or 80-20s on your main part of your bankroll, but you have a small bankroll for the lucky 15s because you like the exotic and the big wins. Robert, does this work on national hunt races? Absolutely. Same principles. The same principles stay throughout. You can use these methods. You can use this tactic on national hunt races, flat races, all-weather races, any races you can use it on, because what it is it's showing us horses that have potential based on their connections. So it's showing us that shortlist. Then we are confirming in a few minutes, we are then confirming whether the horse has shown it can run over similar conditions. So if it's national hunt, if it's hurdles, then we're looking for those hurdle races. We're looking for that evidence it can jump those hurdles over the ground, over the distance. It's got the stamina to. That's then the evidence that we're digging into. So absolutely it can work. The tactic can work there as well. Flying Benny, do you play forecast as part of your strategy at all? Perhaps if a trainer has two in a race. So and that goes back to kind of what I was just saying, which is actually the finding the horses and the strength of the horses is separate from how we structure the bets. So you could structure, you could go through this short list and find the horses that you think are strong enough to bet on. And you do that first. And then you might say, okay, Well, I found 4 horses, I can put them in a lucky 15. Or actually, there are 2 horses in this particular race, because sometimes there'll be more than 1 horse at a race. There are 2 horses in this race, they both look strong. So actually, I might drop those into a forecast or a reversed forecast. Exactly, as you say, Fine Benny, there may well be more than 1 in a race. There's not often more than 2 in a race, but there are sometimes 2 in a race. So yeah, so the structure, the bet structure comes in afterwards. So don't try and think about that beforehand. Now, I ask people, and I probably asked you, what your preferred strike rate is, or how many losing bets in a row you can cope with. I ask that a lot, and then I say, well, this bet type is going to suit you. So why am I talking about bet structure there when I'm now saying it should be the last thing? And I'm talking about bet structure there because when you create your first foundational strategy, when we build that first foundational strategy out for you, when we're building that first bridge to success out for you, what we want to do is we want to make sure we fit within your comfort zones. And some bet types are more suitable for strike rates. So if you only like 3 or 4 losers in a row, you're going to need a very high strike rate. You're going to need like 80%, maybe 90%. Now, the chance of you getting that on win bets is slim unless you're only betting odds on. So then the question becomes, are you happy to bet odds on? And if you're not happy to bet odds on, then we have to look at a different bet type. Purely because you're not going to win 80 or 90% of your bets betting single horses that aren't odds on. It's going to be almost impossible, well, essentially impossible. So then we're going to look at place bets, 80-20 bets, Dutch bets, whatever. But that's the reason. Once we've built that foundation strategy, that first one, that bridge to success, when you start understanding how you prefer your bets and your risk, actually, we can then move on to the next stage on that bridge, and it can become far, far more. You can push that success forward. You can push that advantage forward because you can stop focusing on a bet type at the beginning, because ultimately the bet type is irrelevant. The bet type is a preference. It's the odds that matter. And if you're doing forecasts, then you're going to have a slightly lower strike rate. That means you're going to get longer losing streaks. That means you're going to need a bigger bankroll. That means you're going to have to be happy with those longer losing streaks, those bigger downswings. But if you're analyzing a race properly with whatever foundational strategy you're using, it doesn't matter which one. It's about you and your preferences. It doesn't matter whether you're using Speedgraphs, whether you're using PRLs, whether you're using trainer connections and the daily stat packs, whether you're using the Monte Carlo simulator. It doesn't matter which your favorite foundational strategy is, because what they are doing is they are showing you and you are learning how to assess the strength of a horse in a race. That is the core skill. And once you have that skill, you can assess that in any race. Then you can determine whether the odds are value. Then you might think, actually, I'm going to do a place bet here, but I'm also going to drop in a small forecast because I think the forecast odds are looking like there is an advantage there, or the reverse forecast, that they're higher than they should be, because because you understand the feeling of how strong a horse is in a race. Okay, so I hope that answers that. So the key skill that we are teaching at the Race Advisor as we build your bridge to success, the skill that you are learning by practicing, and this is why I say practice over at Aldermis, practice on as many races as you can, because it is that practice, it is that repetition of doing, putting that same strategy into practice again and again and again on race after race after race, that you understand the nuances of how it works. And those nuances then start to sit because you see that horse didn't win, whether it's on Aldermis, on our light wheel racing, where you can do it kind of about 7 to 8 times faster, or whether it's on live racing. You feel those nuances and you do it again and again and again, and you start to just soak in what's working and what's not. And when you've put too much emphasis and not enough emphasis, and obviously I can help adjust that. And when you share some of your analysis with me in the forum, I can see them and I can say, actually, I can guide you in that direction. I say, you're putting a little bit too much emphasis here. Don't consider that quite so much. Move over here. Or if you're more of a systematic process and you prefer that systematic approach, and you're building that out, I can say, well, I think you're putting a bit too much weight on these ratings or these factors, or you're not balancing that rating or factor with this one. You need to balance those a bit more to kind of level it out. There's too much importance going on or not enough importance going on. But what we're doing here is we're building out this approach that tells us how strong a horse is. And that's the skill that we need to have. Whichever way we come to it, and everyone will come to it differently. And when you come to it differently, when we build that bridge of success out for you, what makes it so powerful is that it's about you. It's about your preferences. It's about what you're comfortable with. And that's what makes you successful with it. Because we're starting from a different standpoint. We're not starting from the standpoint of, I want to make X amount return on investment. I want to make X amount of profit. That's the byproduct. We will do that. You will do that. You will make that if you focus on the right things first. If you try and jump over there and make that profit day one, you're going to fail because you're not going to be focusing on the right thing. You're going to be focusing on, I lost that bet, I lost that bet, I lost 4 bets in a row. That's the wrong focus because the strike rate might not be high enough. You might not be comfortable with the losing streaks. You might not have a bankroll big enough. You might be staking too. The focus of that is the wrong point. That is the byproduct. The profit is the byproduct. The profit will come. The profit will happen if you walk across the bridge in the right way and you build the strategy the right way. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Thank you for all the questions. If you've got any questions you think of afterwards, please do drop us a line on the support. You can contact support on any page of our website. Just hit the help button in the bottom right. I'll just show you quickly where that is. If you want to contact us anytime, you can see here, the bottom right, there's a little help button. If you click on that help button, there's a form. Just fill that in, drop it to us. It comes straight over to our support team, and we will get back to you pretty quickly. We've got an awesome support team. So we'll get back to you pretty quickly. You can also, of course, come over to the forum up here. Drop me a message in the forum up here as well. You can see it's really active. It's wonderful. We've got loads of people now dropping in here. And look, we're going to put we've got 13,500 posts, 645 topics, and an absolutely awesome community of you guys. So, if you've got any questions as well, please do ask them in the forum. If you're not yet an RA Pro member, please head over to raceadvisor.co.uk and create your account, join, become part of our pro community. We'll start building you out that bridge to success. Thank you so much for joining this evening. I've got some really super exciting things that are going to be coming up in September. And kind of leading into October as well. We've got some really awesome things in the pipeline. I'm very excited to announce. So keep an eye on your inbox throughout September. I'm going to be announcing it probably the first 10 days or so of September at some point. I'm going to be announcing the first thing that we're going to be sharing with you, that I'm going to be sharing with you personally. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for your time. Have an absolutely wonderful evening. What's left of it, have a great week. Any questions, let me know. And I will see you at the next Facebook Live.